If you believe everyone, no matter where they live, deserve a place to call home, you're not alone. On Housing for Good, hosts Chris Goodson and Karolyn Moore explore housing solutions from McPherson to communities across Kansas and beyond. We bring you stories and insights from housing experts, policymakers, and people who are making a real impact. Join the conversation. Listen wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, and more, because housing isn't just local, it's universal.
Welcome to Housing for Good, a podcast dedicated to housing topics and issues affecting our communities in McPherson County and beyond. With years of experience and expertise, hosts Chris Goodson and Karolyn Moore discuss housing challenges and opportunities with other experts from a variety of housing fields.
Hello and welcome back to Housing for Good, the podcast where we explore real solutions to housing challenges and highlight the voices of those making a difference. I'm Karolyn Moore.
And I'm Chris Goodson. Thank you for joining us today.
Chris, what kind of news do we have?
So we have some news as far as McPherson Housing Coalition. We are still trying to raise the funds to build 5 more permanent supportive housing homes.
Yeah.
So we need about $650,000. So if you know of anybody out there that might have some grants available to us that we don't know about, let us know. That would be really amazing. The other thing that we really want to do is build a clubhouse. Now, it's not just a place for people to hang out, but it would be a place that we could offer services. So maybe a child needs some after-school help with their homework, or maybe a family needs some food where they could come in easily Monday through Friday during the day and pick up some food, or maybe they need some paperwork on how to get some assistance or education. I mean, there's a million different things we could do.
Yeah.
And I think what it'll do is have one place for families to go and get the resources they need. What typically happens is they're running all over town trying to find their resources. Well, how am I supposed to take care of my children, get a job, or do all those things if all the resources are everywhere?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one of the things we want to do with that clubhouse. So again, we're trying to raise funds for that. And that, I think that's going to cost about $1 million to finish, to do that. So, I mean, it would be a really beautiful space, of course, and a place that can help our families get back on their feet.
Yep. Now, I will add, with the money we need for the houses, to build the houses, we have a matching pledge out there. Where if we can raise $200,000, they will give us $100,000 towards what we're doing. So that can go towards that $650,000 to build those other 5 houses. So that's exciting.
That's our news. So that's what we're doing.
All right.
Okay.
Well, today's episode is really special. We're joined by Christine English-Baird, who serves on the Kansas Homeless Corporation Advisory Board. What makes their perspective so important is that she's going to bring lived experience about homelessness along with her current role helping shape statewide housing policy and solutions. So, Christine, we are so honored to have you here with us today. And I have to say, this was just a really last-minute replacement because we were going to have Kayla Kinnear on, and she had a health issue. So, bless your heart, you've offered to step in and get right into the middle of this.
And you have no idea what you're getting yourself into, by the way. I mean, we're here to inform and hopefully provide a little bit of information for our people that are out there listening. We have people who listen from a national and an international, so don't get freaked out about that. But we do have some people in England and different places around the world, because quite honestly, this really is a human problem that everybody has. It's not just McPherson, Kansas, or it's not just across the United States, but it's everywhere. I hear about this everywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today. This is really cool. So first, we'd like to start with your story. Can you share a little bit about your own experiences with homelessness and what that looked like for you?
Sure. I'm very happy to be here, by the way. I'm so glad that Kayla got a hold of me, because I'm always interested in learning about different podcasts and other people in the state working towards minimizing homelessness, helping with it, that are passionate too. So thank you for having me. Part of my story, let's see. I am the co-chair for the Lived Experience Advisory Board with Kansas Statewide Homeless Coalition. That just kind of what I do. I got into it because I was homeless. I experienced homelessness first as a child due to domestic violence and drug abuse. And so we also dealt with housing insecurity then. Fast forward to an adult, I get into my own intimate partner relationship that turned violent. When I went to leave, there were threats of keeping my child. He's going to destroy me. You're going to be homeless. And inevitably that did occur. I lived 3.5 years on the streets of Denver. I tried everything to get out of it. I was in, thank goodness, for domestic violence shelters. Shout out to them, by the way. I was in domestic emergency shelter, into a transitional shelter. There was just no affordable housing. And so I was at the very end of that. And so my ex offered me an apartment. And so I took it. I was afraid of being homeless. That ended up disastrously. And how I ended up here is I took that same offer. I was on the street for 3.5 years, could find no way out. I was living under a bridge. I tried, renting rooms from people, and those were unsafe. There's so many other things going from domestic violence to a whole nother world of trauma, especially as a woman on the streets. And so my safest option was to be on the streets, right? Sometimes rather than renting rooms from strangers and creepy dudes and all this stuff. So I ended up sitting 3.5 months in jail. I knew that I had to get back to my son. I also knew that my ex lived in Kansas. And so I figured out a way to get here, and it involved him. And I almost, it was my only way out, right? So coming here, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. He almost beat me to death. And so I went to reach out to domestic violence shelters, and there were none open. So thank God I knew one person in this state, and he answered the phone. Thank God. So I was able to sit, regroup, be in a safe spot because no services were open. Even the domestic violence shelter told me that since I had a couch that was a safe place to stay on, that really their services were shut down. So I had to just kind of figure stuff out on my own. So I started doing that. While I was sitting here recuperating, figuring out how to get custody of my son out of my violent abuser's hands, which, by the way, I will preface, I now have a lifetime PFA in place in Kansas, and my son is in my custody and protected.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
To get through all that, I started doing outreach. I just couldn't imagine. I wake up in the mornings, and after being homeless and on the streets for 3.5 years, I wake up every day and I thank my lucky stars that I am housed, that I have a secure place to live, and food in my belly. And so my instant thought is, how can I help the unhoused? Seriously. So I started doing volunteer outreach.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing. And I will say that although the story is shocking and people are like, wow, I cannot believe that somebody went through that. There is a movie called The Maid. I don't know if you've seen it or not. That is probably the best movie I've ever seen about what somebody who is facing domestic violence goes through and how manipulated they are by not only the person that they're living to, they're, like you called it, your intimate partner, but also by employers, people that are trying to help them, family members. I mean, it was shocking all the things that this person went through and how she had to work so hard to get herself out. So I would advise people, go out there and find that movie, The Maid. I'm not sure if it's on Hulu and Netflix. It's on one of those because I've watched it and referred people to it regularly. But go watch that. It's an eye-opener to what Christine is saying today.
So
It absolutely is.
So is there a turning point or a moment or support system that helped you start moving forward?
Yes, and that was absolutely having a safe place to stay, live, and get my bearings about me. And that was my friend, who is actually my husband now. We are now married.
That's awesome.
He was somebody that I knew for a long time. I knew he was a safe person. He was raising his boys solo. And by the grace of God, he answered the phone that day. And he gave me a safe place to stay and just recuperate. He didn't require anything of me, no conditions, just as a friend, here, I'm going to support you through that. And for anybody listening, please, if you have somebody that is facing domestic violence and needs a way out, answer the phone, give them a safe place to land. And having that safe spot gives me the leverage to lead the life that I was supposed to live. I'm serious.
That's incredible.
The advocacy work across the board to feed the homeless. Like, he supports me 1,000% in all my endeavors. And it's beautiful. Had I not had that safe place to be and to heal and and just to gain who I was back, I wouldn't be where I am today.
That's amazing. So our Oak Harbor cottages do that for people. They have a safe place to land. We have supportive services for them. We don't have any expectations except we have to together figure out how we're going to get you out of this situation. There's a plan that we put together based on what you need, not what we think you need. And it sounds like those are mirroring each other a little bit. What happened with you and your now husband, and what we do with our families, and how to move them forward, because they have to have you have to have a safe place to land first, and then you have to get the things that you need so that you can move forward. So what I love especially about talking to Christine is her passion. Can you hear that passion in her voice? Yep. Not only is she a survivor, but she is also somebody who's out there, out in the field, working, helping people, getting people out of this situation. I love it. This is really an awesome, what a fun interview we have today. It's just very powerful.
No, I love it. Okay, so I want to know, you're serving now on the Kansas Statewide Homeless Coalition Advisory Board with lived experience. How did you go from your lived experience stepping into this role as an advocate and advisor? How did they find you, or how did you find them?
It was kind of kismet, it just fell in my lap. I had been volunteering for years at that point, and a Facebook post by Kayla Kinnear came out on I just fell, and I was like, and it was about the Lived Experience Advisory Board, about getting involved, and I sent off an application, and honestly, at the time, I had no teeth, okay? After domestic violence and homelessness, so I'm showing up ready to go, and I'm like, oh crap, I have to interview. Kayla is the sweetest person. She has a mission, right? Yes, that was totally it.
That is hilarious.
I determined through this whole thing, giving my life back and getting myself back, that I was going to say yes to situations that perhaps were intimidating, not fearful. I mean, maybe a little fearful.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, right? And so I said yes. And so I interviewed for it, and it was a great fit. And so it just fell in my lap, and I said yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
I knew that I wanted to be a part more than just feeding people. We have to act upstream, right?
Yes,
I want to be involved in advocacy work and knowing how these systems work, because I had no clue. I really had no idea how a COC worked, or how HMS, all these acronyms. But I was ready to learn, because I'm passionate that if we act together and upstream with everybody, including and most importantly, our government, our policymakers, the large COCs together, that we can make a difference. And that ultimately, getting, kind of it falling into my lap, it was a good thing. I didn't know I was going to be such a great advocate for it.
So I love the phrase, nothing about me without me. So if you're going to make a decision about something that affects me, I want to be a part of that conversation to know, because I'm the one you're affecting.
Right. So what does it mean? So going into that, what does it mean to you to have a seat at the table? Is that a huge deal for you to be sitting at that table and helping to make decisions and getting your story out there so that people understand, hey, wait a minute, what you're trying to do is not working, or this is what needs to be added? What an opportunity you have to be able to have that ability to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm here representing people that have been that are in my situation or have been in my situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's wonderful having a seat at the table and being given that opportunity. And I think I can say it goes even further than that. The potential is there with just having the seat at the table. But especially with the Lived Experience Advisory Board and Kansas Statewide Homeless Coalition, it's more than just having a seat at the table. We actually have a voice. They listen to our feedback. We are literally going to talk with legislators, coming up with marketing, and working with other people with lived experience in the state to actually come up with best practices, share those across the board, bring them to the steering committees. So it's more than just having a seat at the table. It's them actually listening to us. And they do. It's wonderful. And we don't have to have much fight for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They just gave us the platform. And at some places, you're just a token. They want you to tell your story, and that's it. Yeah. But here, they gave us the tools. Now, they taught us, and we've had to go get a couple tools ourselves, but they gave us the tools through teaching us about meetings, teaching us how policies work, what the state legislative is like. And then we can go from there and change the policies, right? Implement them across the board. But had we not been given those tools, or been kind of just sit there to just tell your story, we wouldn't have the platform or the voice to bring change to those policies.
Oh, that's awesome. So from your perspective, What are some of the biggest challenges that people experiencing homelessness are going through right now in Kansas? What does that look like?
Ooh, I think right now, sadly, we are facing a mass criminalization. Obviously, we know that across the board. And I think that is bringing a hefty, more of a hopelessness to the people that are actually living on the streets right now, right? There's a lack of resources since COVID ended. All those fundings are dried up. Lots of federal funding's drying up. And so I think that with facing criminalization and no place to go, perhaps, a lot of cities, even rurally, are facing lack of funding, lack of beds. If you took everybody that was out in the encampments and on the street and tried to put them into a shelter bed today, more than likely there wouldn't be many available for them. And so I think they're facing that, and the lack of empathy from the public, sadly. There's been a total narrative shift where a couple of years ago, I felt people were more empathetic, and now they're facing this harsh overtone, whether that's from our government to just the overtone of the media and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if somebody actually knew your story, it would completely change somebody's mind. How do you in any way blame somebody who's been facing domestic violence and is having to run for their life basically and has nowhere to go? How would you have a bad opinion about that person?
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why it's really important we get these stories out so that people can hear, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. This is what happened to me.
It's not always somebody's bad choices or bad decisions. It's something that's been done to you. So, Christine, what barriers did you experience yourself that you are still seeing people struggle with today?
So let's see. It is directly, I experienced obviously wage versus affordable housing, rent increases. That's not keeping up. And I'm seeing it especially in the Wichita areas, even in the rural areas, the lack of affordable housing, and they're just no wage increase. That's a big problem. And I know that we have to get ahead of that, and Kansas can do it. I am a firm believer. I'm a forever optimist that we can do that, but we have to come together to do it because that is a direct problem.
I think we need to get really creative with that housing too.
Yes.
I mean, we can't do the standard thing. We need to be doing tiny homes. We need to be doing maybe put a house behind somebody so that they can have their family member live there. I mean, I think we're going to have to do zoning differently. I really think that we have to get really creative with that. We can't, the same old way is not working anymore. Yeah.
So one of the most valuable things about your role is that you bring lived experience into conversations that are often dominated by policymakers or service providers. Why is it so important to have people with lived experience involved in shaping solutions?
Well, I think it goes back to what you just said, creative solutions, right? People with lived experience, they are some of the most ingenious. They have ingenuity, creative problem solving. And this is all while in survival mode, by the way. So imagine what they can do.
Yeah.
And they are given the tools and the education even of these systems. They have creative solutions. There are a lot of people with lived experience. And I know that you guys have the cottages and stuff like that. A lot of people with lived experience and otherwise need those creative solutions. And people with lived experience are bringing that to the table. They know that the recent policies and rezoning and all this stuff, we need them at the table to explain that and to come with these actual models, much like the cottages and tiny homes, pallet homes, anything other than what we're working with right now. And people with lived experience kind of look at what is on the table currently and look at it with new solutions, with a set of fresh eyes and say, hey, this isn't working. Let's try this.
Yeah. So what do you wish decision makers or community members understood better about homelessness? What is it that they don't really get?
That it's an individual failing. Most of the time, it is not an individual failing, that it's systemic. A lot of it has to do with the systems in place, whether it's lack of affordable housing, domestic violence situations. There is a plethora of a list of things that people that are experiencing homelessness or that have endured homelessness are actually there for a reason. And sometimes it is mental illness and substance abuse. But does that mean they don't need help? We should be helping them still. They still deserve another chance.
Yeah, everybody deserves a home. I mean, we really believe that everybody deserves a home. It may look differently for people. Maybe you need more than one person in a house because they can't afford it, or maybe you need a tiny home. Or I was at a a city meeting once where we were trying to get things approved for our tiny home village, and somebody wrote a letter and said, well, those people need to live on the edge of town. And so I simply said, well, first of all, the jobs are not out there. They don't have vehicles. Their children need to get to school. Do you need them to walk 2 miles in the snow and the rain to get to school? Their grocery stores are not there. Nothing that they need are on the edges of town. How exactly does that work? I mean, we live in a small town. We don't have public transportation. We have a little bit of taxis, but they can't afford that. And so how does that work? So, I mean, that's some of the things that people don't understand. They don't even want to see that population, let alone having them live anywhere near where they are.
Yeah.
So I think we've been able to really break some of those barriers of things that people think about people that are experiencing homelessness, that are struggling, and they might be surprised that most of the families that we help all have jobs.
Yes.
But they can't keep up. They're behind in their rent. They're 1 minute away from being evicted. I heard 2 stories today about somebody that's being ready to be evicted, working 2 jobs, doing everything they can possibly do, and it's not enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you seen or been part of a success story, maybe a program or a person's journey that really gives you hope for what is possible?
You know, this is a great question. I don't really want to highlight like personal stories because that's hard. I see a couple, right? But I really want to highlight creative solutions like you all have done in McPherson and mutual aid and grassroots efforts, especially in the Wichita area. We're trying to get rural in the Sumner County going, but I do a lot of my outreach and volunteer work with our unhoused community in the Wichita area. And recently, they created through mutual aid and grassroots efforts, they are becoming part of the solution. And the Wichita COC is starting to work with mutual aid groups and partnering and empowering their incentives. Like Wichita Hydration Homies is a person with lived experience, and they just give out water. To the unhoused folks downtown in Wichita, because there are no water fountains that are on during the summer. And so they give out water, and they have been doing it for a couple of years, just very grassroots. And so Shiley Zihad from I believe it's the Wichita COC, I'm not sure exactly where she works, but they partnered and they did a commercial and they were able to get the word out there, and they've grown exponentially. They've done commercials, the community's involved. And that's how I feel the next portion of whatever we're facing in the future is going to lead, is mutual aid getting involved in your local communities and grassroots efforts just like that.
That's awesome.
Working together with the COCs, because partnering together with the grassroots mutual aid, people with lived experience, can really bring creative solutions. And it doesn't have to be anything completely off the wall, just water.
I know that's what people don't understand. It's simple solutions. We have people that bring all the supplies that we need to clean our homes after somebody moves out, to make sure they have toilet paper and paper towels. And somebody donates that to us. We just call and say, hey, we need this specific thing. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you add that to somebody else who's bringing us food, and then you add that to somebody else who's providing this service and that service, together, that is powerful. And that's what needs to happen across the country. I believe that this is solvable across the United States and around the world. If people are listening, any one of you could do this exact same thing that all of us are doing.
Yeah, I'm part of a book club that meets a couple times a month, and we always read a book and talk about it, but we also, depending on what that book is about, have conversations that go further than what did you learn from this book? Well, one of the conversations yesterday had to do with, the book was about Mother Teresa, and we can't all be Mother Teresa. Like, to go into poverty like she did, and it's not for everybody, but I told them, the girls in book club, I said, look, if you just pray about it, God will tell you what you can do, and then you just do that. Mm-hmm. And maybe that is when you see somebody on the side of the road. My mother, bless her heart, she saw some people walking. She could tell they were traveling. That's her word. They had no vehicle, but they're traveling through McPherson. She went and made a couple of sandwiches and grabbed a couple of apples. And these people then had moved by the time she stepped out of her door to give it to them. So she got in her car, and she knew which way they were traveling, and she just drove till she found them. And then she said, hey, can I give you, like, have you eaten? Can I give you a sandwich? And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. So, and even that small thing. And you know what I asked her? I said, Mom, did they cry? Because a lot of times when you reach out to help somebody, they're so overwhelmed that you're trying to help them that they can't do anything but cry because they've had so many other people that don't want to see them, just walk on by.
Look away.
You look away, and it's like, just do something. We can solve a lot of this. So,
that's such a great story. You know, I love your mother.
I know, I do too.
You know, we're very fortunate. We have great mothers. That's such a good story.
Yeah. So, Christine, for people listening who want to make a difference, what's one simple thing they can do in their own community to support people experiencing homelessness? What is one thing you would tell them to do?
Say hello. Look them in the eye and say hello. That's it. I mean, you know, you don't even have to go any further than that. You can give water. You can offer other things. Just say hello. I think the worst thing about being homeless at one point was being invisible and feeling so alone. There were days that nobody talked to me. Nobody looked in the eyes, you know? I just go take a shower, clean myself up, and look a certain way, and people would start acknowledging you again.
Yeah.
Just say hello, smile, ask them if they need anything for the day. Get involved in mutual aid and grassroots efforts, feed people. And, it doesn't have to go any further than the hello. You can do the little things like you were just saying. Sometimes it's just the small things that make the biggest difference in someone's life.
Yeah.
I love that. It's just simple. Acknowledge them, look them in the eye. And that's something that we can all do. And it might bring just a little bit of dignity to that person. You don't know what they're going through that day, and just having that little bit of dignity that day. I see you, you matter, I care. I mean, that might make them be able to get up and go do something that they need to do, that they've been so depressed or so upset they can't even move. And now you've given them just this little piece of hope. I matter.
Yeah.
I matter.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. So if you could leave listeners with one message, something you wish everyone understood about homelessness and resilience, what would that be?
Ooh, that is something that all people, it goes back to lived experience and living experience of homelessness, we all have an inner resiliency. It is something that we didn't think we had, but somehow we make it through, right? And I think that lived experience and people living experience on the streets right now with a safe place and just another shred of a chance, they can go on to change the world. And I'm talking just in their communities, whether that's just saying hi to the next person, paying it forward. It is an untapped thing, homelessness and resiliency. And I urge anybody that has a chance to work with people with lived experience to tap into that, because it is an untapped resource for sure.
Yeah. Well, Christine, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your story so openly. Your voice is such an important reminder of the humanity behind the statistics. And if you have the opportunity to come to McPherson, I would love to meet you in person.
Oh, yes.
Show you our little houses and what we're doing, and just get a fresh set of eyes from somebody that has been there to see what we're doing and see what we've missed. One of the people that has lived in our little cottages, she said, "You know what you're missing here?" And I'm like, "What?" "A flashlight. If the lights go out, I need a flashlight." And I'm like, "You are right."
Yeah.
So we went and bought flashlights. But if somebody doesn't point that out to you, you think you've covered everything. And, but no, I'd love to meet you in person.
Yes.
Absolutely. I will take you up on that one day.
That would be, and you're not that far if you're in Wichita.
No.
Yeah.
That is a quick drive down I-135. But thank you. I know our listeners will be moved by your story and inspired by your words. I know that I'm passionate about this, but you really brought it out even more. It's so, you can hear it in your voice and when you tell your story, it's incredible. And thank you for the work that you're doing with the Kansas Homeless Corporation Advisory Board. I think it's really important that people with lived experience are on there, that they tell their stories, that they push this forward, that the passion, people can feel the passion.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that Karolyn and I get a lot sometimes when we do public speaking, is they're like, we can feel the passion. We know this matters to you.
Yes.
And that you're going to do whatever it takes to push it forward and to make sure that we end this.
Yeah.
Love that.
So thank you to our audience for tuning in today for Housing for Good. If you would like to drop us a line, if you know of somebody that would be interesting to be on our podcast, leave us a review. Give us all of that at housingforgood@mcphersonhc.org. And if you would be interested in knowing more about KHRC or the Kansas Homeless Corporation and how you yourself could be involved in housing initiatives, please check out the links on our Facebook page or our McPherson Housing Coalition webpage and get involved. Figure out how you can be involved.
And have a great day.